Well, I wasn't talking about your age. I was talking about your time in the network. And just because, you joined Leslie at 4, your 25 years,
Thank you.
makes you what you are. But,
There you go.
nevertheless. By the way, Wendy, I do need, I've sent a message to the company you bought that wonderful quartz thing from.
Oh,
I can't figure out how to change the battery in the clock or to get it out to get it going. They've not responded. So if you got any ideas, I'm open to, whatever. But
I do.
I
I
won't,
can tell you how I can tell you how to do that.
great. I won't take up. Okay. You started recording because it is now 3 o'clock.
It is
Uh,
good to go.
Hello, everybody. My name is Arnie Rinsler. I have this September is 25 years in the network, which is why they sent me this lovely quartz clock. That was just delightful. Um, and so Wendy did ask me to do something on because she knows. Well, I don't know what she knows, but because I'm doing the work with some people, and I have converted from my normal doing it with the book and paper, whatever, to doing it with the LMS. So she said, would I mind having a dialogue on facilitating, or how I facilitate with the LMS? And so I said, sure. And so let it be noted, Ms. Stinson, that you you are 1 minute late, but it's okay. And I was beginning at 3, as Wendy told me I was allowed to. But I'm just kidding. Then that's fine. I mean, 3:01 should be okay. So when she asked me to do that, I normally, when somebody asks me to do something from trusted advisor, present or do something, I figure, well, I'll do this from, within my head. So, my wife says, well, when are you going to decide what to do? And I says, well, usually as I'm walking up to the podium. And so she turns white. So how can you do that? I said, good, I've been studying this stuff for 25 years. And so it just comes out of me. I mean, Doug Brown does the same thing. If he tells you that he's preparing, bullshit. Okay. So meantime, so that I apologize, Wendy, I didn't mean to offend anybody with my salty language, but I've been told by people that because I'm New Jersey, I'm given, what is it, a gimme. I'm allowed three swear words before people get frustrated, and I'll try not to go over that limit. Um, but I truly did sit down with my computer in front of me and says, okay, let me make some notes for what I would do and say. And what I truly came up with, and I've got notes here, and should I put them in the share, and I will afterward, just because I'll want to demonstrate something in what we're going to do. Um, but the truth is, I was using a metaphor. Now I'm old enough that I've had a lot of cars in my life because cars are something that I love. They mean something to me, and my wife gets frustrated with me because I remember events by the car that I owned and car that I drove to that event and car that I did that with. So cars are definitely important in my life. But so the metaphor I came up with is I had a lovely car in 1995. I had a lovely car in 1968, but I was thinking about the 95 car that I had. It was really the first modern car that I had. It was a 1996 Maxima, and it really was one of the first, I thought, really modern cars. But I'm now driving a 2018 Prius, and doesn't matter what year your Priuses are, they're pretty much the same because they get updated. I got a new update last night. Um, and so they're cars. They drive the same way. The vehicle is different, and I may think a little differently about how I use and treat the vehicle, but it's a vehicle. It still gets me from point A to point B. And so when I was thinking about facilitating on the LMS, it's a vehicle. You're facilitating the same thing. And whether you're going through the material as in the chapters, or you're going through the material on the action plan, it's still, the power is the material. And what I started to say, there's a few things. First of all, this is the future, okay? Embrace it. And don't offer somebody paper or digital. It's digital. I mean, if you start working with it and you really find somebody can't do it, well, how come? Well, first, they can print it out if they need to. Um, and again, if I go back probably two generations of the LMS, I did begin with a client. And within hours, I had the book sent to the guy because it wasn't working. I now believe that with some modifications, and Wendy and I have gone over some of the things I'd like to have better, but the LMS deserves to be used. And deserves to be used primary because, and I'll use a metaphor with you guys, that when I got into the network in 95, I had done a lot of work on time management. And when Linda Martin was putting together the first time management stuff with the past company that I won't pay fines for mentioning, she asked me to facilitate, putting that together because I had done work in time management. And so nobody resisted Palm Pilots like I did because I was so invested in my calendar. The book and what I was doing with the book. You're shaking your head, Linda, because you remember that. And then at one point, but one point I had an epiphany. If I show up and have my book that I'm selling, when Palm, and for me, it was when Palm Pilots linked to my computer, because then I can be out, do everything I'm doing in the book in a Palm Pilot, plug it into my computer, and now it's all there. And it was great. When it was just the computer, no, the book was still a better system. So I'm likening it to that epiphany. And then in the network, I talked to people. I said, you show up with a book, you look like you're driving a 1929 Ford. I mean, you do not have credibility. So those of you that are still using a book, I'll say the same thing. But now I think it's the next thing. I think that we must move ourselves to the LMS, digital. And we'll go through some things, and I'll certainly take questions when we do it. So that's the next thing, the thought I had. But then, then there's the last thing. And this is, I don't know where to put this before or afterward. Since March, and I remember being on a call like this, probably 12th or 15th of March, and I kid Doug Brown, but he was a lot further ahead at understanding what Zoom was than I sure was. And so he was talking about Zoom, and I got off, and I quickly sent Wendy that we ought to have a class on how to use Zoom. Well, within a week, I'm an expert. Okay, I mean, because I learned really quickly, I better learn how to use Zoom or I'll have nobody to talk to. And so, as in many things, we learn from necessity. And so, and I truly mean it, within a week, I had a Zoom account and I'd begun moving clients to Zoom. And now here we are, I don't know, 8 months later, my total practice will no longer ever be in person. All of my practice has migrated to Zoom. And number one, as a practical matter, I ain't going back. Because I have a pre-existing condition, which a few other on this call may have. It's called being old. Okay, Wendy doesn't have that, but some of us may. And so my pre-existing condition is age. And I don't care what Donald Trump says, I don't want to get the virus. And so when it is, my daughter is in with her husband and another couple. They're traveling this past weekend, and from end of last week to tonight. I think she came home last night. Traveling through Aspen and Vail and beautiful mountains, and it's gorgeous. And she's emailing how it can be safe for her mom and I to go there and to do what they did. And I said, you don't understand. When I have to question whether it's going to be safe or not, I'm not going. So until it's safe and I don't have to do things to make it safe, I'm not going. And I think that's probably at best next summer. So if nothing else, that's where business is to be had. And so that's the other point. And I find, now to my clients, I find I am more effective on a Zoom environment or WebEx or, but I am partial to Zoom. I'm more effective on that than I was or am or was face to face. But and whether you believe you are or not, offline I'd have a dialogue where I am more effective. No, I know I am. But even if you don't believe you're quite as effective, you're pretty damn close. Um, but now I have no territory. I mean, when I had to touch everybody, my clients were within 50 miles of where I lived, which included New York City, and it was nice, and Long Island, or whatever. But now I I I just sold an LMS to somebody this morning, somebody that I've been working with, three guys on a planning process, and they're scattered. Two are in Maryland, one's in Pennsylvania. They were a referral from another client of mine that happens to be here. And one of them today, we got into a dialogue, and we're kicking off, and I will buy the material at the end of the week, Wendy. Um, that we're kicking off the LMS next week. We put a date in the thing, and it's a normal, the sales process is the same. Somebody wants to do something with me, I ask questions, and I do this and this, and would you, yeah, that'd be terrific. And this is what it'll cost, and this is what we'll do. Great. And he just went ahead and put in the kickoff date, which I would have done at any different time. And so it's, now I have no geographic limitations. So not only am I talking the LMS, but I'm talking totally that we're doing this on a remote platform. And I will take questions at the end, or if anybody wants to break in. And yeah, Linda, you have a question.
I just had it. I wish I would like you to expand a little bit on maybe a little more specific on why you think you're more effective via Zoom than you are in person.
Linda, you are asking me a question right now, and you just smiled. And I am looking at you with such intensity that if I were doing this face to face, you'd run for the hills.
Oh, I
Okay?
don't know about that.
No, I'm serious. And if it were a guy talking, he'd wonder what my orientation was because I am focusing so much on, there you go. Lauren, I just saw that you smiled at something. Wow, I'm reinforced now. I can dig into that because Lauren is smiling. That the ability to get facial and bodily cues on the Zoom environment are enhanced. Now, if there's 50 people in front of me, tough to do. And I wouldn't, I mean, this is too big a group. Let me see, we've got 14 people. This is too, I wouldn't do 14 people in a group. I wouldn't do more than 5 or 6. I would forget Zoom. I mean, that's just, if I had, when I had more than that, I'd break it up into two groups because somebody wasn't getting value from me when I couldn't focus on them. But the ability, especially in a one-to-one, it's incredible. And I began to feel this 20 years ago when I first started working on the phone. And I got a couple of people here that are in the coaching academy. And when we first started doing the coaching academy, a major part of it was how we dealt with people on the phone because it was meant to be a remote thing. And I learned when I only had one modality to focus on. In fact, we used to do the role plays back to back. So you couldn't see the other person because you were talking on, the training was to be on the phone. Well, I learned then, Linda, that when I focused on a modality, you gained a lot. As in a non-sighted person, after they lived blind for a while, they really learned to hear and to feel and to do things using the modality that they have. Well, now we've been added a second modality, which is visual. And so when I put the two things together, number one, I can sit at my desk and see 7 people in a day because I'm not traveling anywhere to make a meeting. I mean, so I can go into all the advantages of doing it. And by the way, I want to bring this to my clients. When I meet a client that's complaining about how bad things are, and they're not a massage therapist, or they're not somebody that has to touch somebody, that there should be no reason why your business is faltering. There's just lots of ability to meet people and do stuff and all the good stuff that you guys have been learning that you're doing. And so, Linda, I don't know if I've answered your question, but it's embracing what you need to embrace. Now, I also believe we'll never go back. There are people that, oh, I can do a whole lot more from home and I'm not commuting 2 hours a day and whatever. So I'm just, lots of people, I wouldn't want to be in the real estate business now because I think those are going to be problems. And just lots of things like that. So embrace it. It is the future, and we need to embrace it. And whoever came in, Mike, you came in late, and Bob, you came in late. What I started to say is embrace the future, embrace the LMS, because that's what we're talking about. Um, the next thing I have on my thing is asking the question, what is your goal? And when I see, I keep looking off to my left, whether it's your right or left, that's where I've got the note, so I didn't want to put it up on share. Um, the goal is, what is your goal as a facilitator? Whether you're working on Zoom, whether you're working in the books or whatever, what is your role as a facilitator? And anybody that wants to answer, shout it out, you know. Anybody?
I'll do that. Facilitates Latin means to make easy. So it's to make easy the coaching process or sales training or management training.
What's the benefit of making it easy?
You move quietly and quickly and effectively through the process. Pick your process.
Well, see, let me hang on. You see, in the goal setting process, you understand we set a goal and what are the benefits of the goal, et cetera. So when I use the word goal, I use it meaningfully. What is my final goal, my senior goal as a facilitator? What you're saying is great. All those things are things that I might want to do. But, and I'm always usually want to have a dialogue two ways. One is strategic and one is transactional. And so you're giving me, and Tom, your answers are great. They're not wrong in the least bit, but that would not be my goal. Now, we may achieve the goal the same way, but we haven't yet identified the goal. So what is my goal as a facilitator?
A successful outcome for the client.
Say it again. Somebody said that.
A successful outcome for the client.
A successful outcome for the client. Was Tom, that was you, right?
Yes.
Okay.
The other Tom.
Yes.
The other Tom.
The other TL.
Right. In my screen, one's right above the other, so it's easy. Lauren, what was going to be your answer? You started to shout something out.
To help people learn faster, better.
To help people learn faster and better. Good answer again. Not my goal yet. My goal as a facilitator is engagement. Okay? Now, why is that my goal? Because the greater the engagement, from my belief system, if anybody disagrees, fine. The greater the engagement of the client, the more they will get from the process. Now, I cannot control what they will get. That's up to them. I can measure their engagement by how much they're doing the work, how much they're paying attention, how much they're engaging with me. And my goal, I love to present. This is great. I'm presenting to you. That's wonderful. You're all listening to, you know, the oracle from the mountains coming down to tell you what to do stuff. Shit, I'll get off the phone and tell my wife how wonderful this was. But if you guys didn't engage in getting anything from what we're doing, then I would not have achieved my goal, because in any interaction, my goal is somebody's engagement. They'll determine what they're going to get from it. Now, when we're doing a developmental process, it's not something for an hour. It's something that we're doing over many weeks. But so I go back to everything I'm doing is for engagement. And I made another note to myself as I went back over and looked at my own notes of what I was going to present. A thought came to me, you're their partner. You're their partner in the process. And so when I'm looking for engagement, it's like I'm engaging a partner. Now, I know more about the stuff than they do because I've been doing it for a long time. But I need, so that now we'll get to, because I'm going to go through, and it's really for me, and Wendy may not be doing which I may not be doing for Wendy what she asked me to do, and I apologize. But I'm going to talk about facilitating the material totally. I mean, whether we're doing an LMS or we're doing in the books, that we're still doing it. And it's, how do I engage the client? How do I engage the person that's hired me to make them better in what they're doing. And so I begin, obviously, with the kickoff. Now, when I used to do the kickoff on the phone, most of the time I'd be doing it over the years with affiliates because, you know, we had a process and many of you engaged in it where there were a number of people that were, you'd want coaching and the old, you know, the old company would hire somebody to be your coach. And so much of what I did was on the phone, and I would do it with affiliates. And so if I said, well, if I talked to the 16 squares, would you know what I meant? And they, oh yeah, we know what you, so I didn't have to have that. Or, you know, we'd go through the life wheels. Do you know what I meant? So now I ended up, okay, now I got to figure out something, you know, and this is what I said to you. I've learned to love, oh, hang on. Oh, no, I can't do it because it's not worth it. But I can't screen share. Are you able to? Yeah, great. I forgot to ask it. I forgot I wasn't the host. The point I was going to make is I have mastered screen share. Okay. You know.
You can share now, Arnie.
Okay. And what I'm going to do is so now what I'm going to do is, oh God, I thought I had it up. I don't. Oh, maybe, no, I don't. Bear with me for a moment. I thought I had, you know, what I was doing now up, but I will in a minute. Come on. Oh, I didn't. I closed it out. I am sorry, guys. I should have prepared that better than I did. I didn't think I was going to do that. Oh, here it is. Okay. That brings it up. Come on. Yeah. Okay. You guys see what I have up there now? Okay. So these are my notes. Okay. And so I can bring up the life wheels. I can bring up, I've driven Gerard crazy a few times when I said, this is what I want. Can you find it somewhere in the material and send it to me as a file? And then I can share it. And then I've got just lots of stuff in my computer that I can share. So anything that I can do in any other kickoff, I can do using screen share. And so I find that, and it's really simple to use. I can draw on screen share because there's a, you know, whiteboard function. And I'm still an amateur with it, but I mean, again, if you'll see, these are my notes. And the reason I'm going to take them down is because I don't want you guys reading ahead, you know. Okay? But whatever, you know, if anybody says, hey, send me your note, not a problem. I'll be more than glad to do that. But it's understand the value of the kickoff, because it's the kickoff that is going to set the tone for the next, I don't know, 6, 8, 9 sessions, however many you're doing. And so that begins the engagement. Okay. And so there is a video that exists. I know there's more than one, but a video that exists, if you want it, Wendy will send it to you, of a kickoff that I do.
If I could add it, it is in everybody's toolkit under getting started.
Everybody has it. Okay. But you might have lost it, you know, but she'll send it to you again. And I've done a couple of them, you know, at different things. And I really do that kickoff. And what I've discovered is, and it, I mean, anybody that's been around long enough, it's based on the concept speech, it's based on all this stuff. It's timeless material, but people really get it. And then as you do it, you figure out ways to, and the other thing I must say, you must be engaged with it. You must believe it. You must, as you're presenting it, it must mean something to you. That I guess that's what I got to when I did partnership. You are not performing something. Now, if you were a professional performer, you could be performing and you'd be that good and you could do it. Most of us don't have that skill set of, oh, I'll make you believe this means something to me. So it must mean something to you. And if it doesn't, I'll help. Call me, you know. Bertha, do I believe in this stuff?
Live and breathe it.
There we go. Bertha and I did something, I guess, from the middle of last fall, and we ended up bleeding into the COVID time frame. And that's, I knew what her answer would, because I do believe it. It is what I live and believe all the time. Okay, so that was the kickoff. Then what I do, and again, this is stuff that's come to me. When I was trying to figure out facilitation 25 years ago, I went through the manuals and facilitated the guides and all the other stuff. And I tried to play some of the games and to do some of the stuff. And what I came to after long, doing it a lot of times, and actually this month, 25 years ago, last September, 25 years ago in September, I had my first targeted class. I remember it well. Okay. And so as I was going through delivering this stuff to people, I would say the material is wonderful. And so that I quickly determined I'm going to not present, but I'm going to go over the material. I want my clients, the people that I'm working with, to own that material. And so what I have in my note, and by the way, that's why I love the LMS, because what I can do is I can click on the chapter and we can start going over the chapter. And I always say to somebody, as the assignment says, pick out 2 things, from each chapter to share with the group. Well, often there's no group, it's me, and it's me with one person. And so I will ask them to pick out, underline, do stuff. Then what I will do is, as they're picking stuff out, I will ask them, and this isn't going to surprise the people that have done this, I will ask them, link it to your life. How does this have a relationship to your life? How will this make you perform better, lead better, manage better, communicate better? And so that's what I will do with the material. And I believe that when I can put it, it's now up and we're all looking at it together. My client and I didn't bring it up, but we're doing it. We're going through the material. And you have to get somewhat comfortable. And it does take time, and I'm still working on it, that I can easily go back and forth and say, oh, well, that, which part of the chapter is that in? And it's always there on the left, and you go to that part, click on it, comes up. And so I'm linking it to their lives. And I want to be sure, and I can tell, when somebody's, faking something they came up with, they really didn't read it. And I'll say, did you read or listen 6 times? Well, I have time, and all the rest of it. Well, then it's okay. Then you don't want to get out of it what you wanted to get out of it. I'm just always asking questions. It's their decision to do it, not mine. And so that's one of the things I'm doing. So chapter 1 and 2 is leadership. It's an overview. It talks about leadership. It talks about great stuff. And I'm waiting to get the new one. And I do have a question at the end, Wendy. When will it be? If I'm buying material this Friday, I'm still buying the old material?
Yeah, we're unveiling it at Power Summit, the 28th through the 30th.
Okay. I may have a conversation with you Friday to see if I want to hold off starting this one, but I'll come back and ask you that question later on. So right now, what I've got is chapters 1 and 2 are leadership, and there's so much material in chapters 1 and 2. And the reason there's so much material, and what I always say to a client is, this is like when you were in school and you did Econ 101 or Poli-Sci 101 or Psych 101. They're introductory. And I remember I was a psych major in college, though those many years ago. Now, these were the land grant schools that were founded in the 1800s. And so, Virginia, that was a joke. You got to crack a smile every so often just so I know that you're paying attention. Okay, there we go. Lauren's smiling all the time. She's terrific. But you see what you can see when you're doing this with everybody's face in front of you. It's amazing. It's amazing what one smile from Bertha is worth everything. Okay, so that as we go through it. So I always say to a client, these chapters, what I always use the example that I remember majoring in psych, and from the intro class to, I didn't go to graduate school, but I could have gone and got a PhD, and everything that you kind of touched on in intro psych was in the whole field of psychology. And I said, that's kind of what these two chapters are, because they really touch the surface. They're not going into depth in anything. And so I started saying that because I wanted to, defend that they were the surface. But they're saying we're going to get back through these next chapters into digging in more in depth on some of the things. So that was how I did chapters 1 and 2. And then the product of the past is incredibly rich. Now I will share what I do is if you looked at my book, okay, and I probably would do this when the new leadership comes out, is I will buy the book. And if they don't have it, I'll print it out and do my underlining. Because if you look at my book, it's full of my notes that, and I think this one came out 10 years ago, if I'm not mistaken, Wendy, the leadership in the light blue book. And I had the one before, it was the oatmeal book, and I had done the same thing. And then when the new one came out, I went through and did all the other, because what I'll do is when my client does the two thing. Yep, there you go. That was, no, you're right. That's the white one. That's the newer one. I guess I used an old something. When my client gives me the two, yeah, which one was that? That was the first leadership?
That's the new one.
That's the
This
new
is
one. That's what I
newer.
thought.
And then there's this
Okay.
line with all the notes and all the.
I got
quarterly
that. So
stuff.
I think the oatmeal one was the one that was there in 1995, as a matter of fact. So
Well, you're older than I
we've
am.
had two
You're older than
revisions.
Emmerich.
Okay. And so that, because when my client is done giving me his two from each chapter, I will then, well, let's go back and let's see if there's anything else we want to pull out. And then I just start going through my underlined stuff. And so my next step is to do the underlining for me in the LMS, but for reasons I haven't moved to that yet, and Wendy and I have talked about that. So I still want to be able to challenge my client with other thoughts than they're bringing up. And we'll talk those through, and we'll say, what does that mean in your life? Now, honest to God, it could take me, 8 hours to get through a chapter if I did everything that was possible. So you may be watching the clock and seeing what you think your client needs, tailoring things to your client. So frequently, two people can experience me, one in the morning and one in the afternoon, and if it's each one-on-one, they're in the same place, it may be different. Because I will be tailoring something to a client and what they need. Now, what I want to get into next is now, what do we do with the action plan? Because now, and if you remember the assignments, the assignment between the kickoff and 1 and 2 was to understand the dream inventory and go through the dream inventory. This is where I begin explaining to my client the relationship between a dream, a goal category, and a goal. Now, many of you that may have heard me do this, in sessions, this isn't new, but I'm consistent, because their dreams are wonderful, but they're unfocused and there's no commitment. But they're necessary, because dreams are the focus of everything. We dream, then we focus a little bit more, and then we focus a little bit more, it's a goal. And so I want clients to understand the difference. And so in that session, I then first want to be sure they understand to do the dreams and put down a lot, whether it's 25 or 50, put down a lot. And that usually has to be reinforced, because adults don't do a good job of dreaming. But I do make sure they, if not by that second session, by the third session, so go back and add to your dream inventory. And so then, we keep moving, and we've done 3 and 4, product of the past. And the next was understanding and affirming yourself. And this one, my focus, well, first of all, on this one, I begin, because the assignment between session 2 and session 3 is the first time you've assigned them something meaningful other than dreams in the action plan. That's when they get in the action plan, that's when they get the first mental self-evaluation section where they're going through and they're doing it and they're getting something in their job, what's their job, and all the other things. And if somebody's an employee, I do ask them to show some of the questions and things they're filling out. You know, what are you being paid for? What's the definition of productivity? And so if somebody's hired me to work with somebody else, I tell them that's not off limits. You know, whatever they put in the personal side is off limits. Whatever they put in the professional side is not off limits if somebody's hiring me to do it. And I want their agreement to that. If they say no, then I want to go back and make sure that the person that's hired me is okay with that. Most of the time, I've never had that problem. But and so many times I'm justifying myself to the person that hired me because they think, if nothing else, that was worth the price of admission. That the person is now showing them what a good job is, what it means to be productive. And so the person that's hired me is thrilled. Most of the time, I'm being hired by somebody that's paying for it themselves because they're where they're making themselves better. But I want to be sure they know what it means to be productive because we relate stuff back to them. Okay, so now what I've done is when I'm giving them the assignment between week 2 and week 3 of the mental evaluation section, and I'm not going to do it now, but I go through lots of things because I explain it. They're doing it through 2 goal categories. And I can't tell you why, but when I'm showing that on the screen and going down the list on the left, it seems to have more meaning than when I'm doing it in a book. You know, when I'm leafing through the book and saying, and I'm saying, do it to the goal categories. Now, what I now tend to find is in the next week, which we would be doing 3 and 4, I start with going through the action plan. And I spend a lot of time making sure that they've done it. And if they haven't, we talk about why not. And many of you have experienced that. And I want, that's when they will get that I am serious. And I won't be angry, but I will be disappointed. Okay. Well, why didn't you do the action plan? Well, I didn't have time. And that's when I go through how many hours in a week and how many did you eat and how many did you sleep, and we go through it. And they'll come with 40 or 50 that are unplanned. And I said, so, if it's in a group, I may say to somebody, how long did it take you to do it? Oh, about an hour. And so out of your 30 or 40 hours, you couldn't find the time to do this for an hour. So there's other reasons, but don't tell me it was time. And so I will do that. And then I'll do other things. And anybody who wants to know, I have mechanisms to make them feel really bad for not doing the assignment. And I really do that. And I don't do it because I'm angry. I do it because, listen, you're paying me to do this. And if you choose to not do it, that's your decision. But it will be a failure on my part if I don't get you to engage, because that was my goal, is engagement. I come back to that. I share that with them. And I share that with them because if they engage, they will get maximum value. And that's my goal, for them to get maximum value. Then this is when I present to them the concept, and I've got it down here, and I use the term, I once got it from, I know it's on here, from Ray Overdorf, the BOGO, buy one, get one, from his days as a grocer, you know, when he worked for A&P, buy one, get one. And I would say to them, because I'm explaining to them what a goal category means. And I'm creating the difference between a dream, a goal category, and a goal. And those of you that know me and work with me, they know I live this. I mean it, because what I have, and I explain this when we're doing this first time they're going through an evaluation process personally. I will say my goal for you at the end of our process, you will have done 6 personal, 1 professional, time management, and we could create another. And so you're going to have either 6, 7, or 8 places where you're going to have goal categories. I am going to facilitate you to have at least 3 goal categories in every one of those. and we go through what a goal category is. It's, and I use the mental, you know, I should read more. Great, that's a goal category. I should read this specific book. That's a goal. Or I should read a book. We know what goals are. Goals are specific. We don't have to go through that. But goal categories are not that. They're focused, but no commitment. Dreams are unfocused with no commitment. Goal categories are focused with no commitment. And then goals are focused with a commitment. And so what I want my clients to do is finish the process with 20 to 25 goal categories and pull out and put on paper. And this is where the magic happens. And if you've never done it yourself, you ought to. I say to them at the end of the process, and we go over it at the end, but at the end of the process, I'm going to ask you to pull these on, put them on a piece of paper and, you know, put them somewhere, put them in a file and make an appointment with yourself a year from now to pull that sheet out. And you're going to be amazed at how much progress you made on that sheet of goal categories. It will change your life. It will make a major change in your life. And I know it because I lived it. I've done stuff that never reached the goal setting stage, but it became goal categories. And I share that, and I will share it frequently through the process. Okay, so now we're doing, and I also believe in affirmations. It's not bullshit. It works. Again, I go back to my coach, Ray Overdorf, who demonstrated to me. And if anybody wanted to hear my goal setting story, most of you heard it because I tell it, create one for yourself because it will change lives if people understand the power of affirmations. I do spend a lot of time, and I'm looking forward to the new material that may not have as many chapters devoted. Right now, it's chapters 5, 6, and 7 are really goal setting chapters. And I cover most of it in chapter 5. And chapter 5 is never 2 weeks. I mean, 2 sessions. It's one session, and then 6 and 7 and 6 and then 7 and 8 and whatever. But I spend, because I lead off chapter 5 in the current leadership development process, was saying this is the most important chapter in the book, because this chapter will set the tone for your life. And I use the term, and I always ask the question, if I could share with you how life works, would that be useful? I mean, I'm asking that tongue in cheek, usually laughing while I tell it because I have trouble keeping a straight face. But I ask the question, if I could share with you how life works, would that be useful? Well, anybody would tell me that wouldn't be useful. They're crazy. Of course it's useful. And I said, well, listen, get a pencil ready. The secret of life is you get what you focus on. That's the secret of life. And then I tell them the goal setting is a process for focusing. That's why it's so powerful. Now, the other thing is, remember I used the terms before, strategic and transactional. The goal is strategic. How you're going to accomplish it is transactional. Now, we get later in that when we talk about decision-making and problem solving, because then I go back to a decision is a goal. And I come back and we rethink the same dialogues a couple of weeks later, because a decision is a goal. How we accomplish the decision is problem solving. But first is the decision of what you want. That is a strategic discussion. I will do X dollars this year. Or when we're doing strategy, we're coming up with what I want to do in 10 years, whatever your BHAG is, and however you're going to do it. I mean, so there's so many ways to come to it. Then it's execution, and that's transactional. And always be aware, I think, and I do this a lot with it. Managing time. I mean, that's what I find in today's world. If anybody's still using a calendar book, I throw them back in until they're bigger. Okay. No, I really don't. But I want to have people, you don't want to be using a calendar book. But what I do discover is where I used to actually walk somebody through how to use a Google Calendar or an Outlook calendar, because I've got ways to do it. And if they're really not using some kind of either Google Outlook or somebody else's version of that, I do walk them through how I would do it and what it is. And I use stuff that just come from my time with time management. But what I discover is in most worlds today, whether it's salesforce.com, whether the person's selling real estate, financial stuff, or whatever, there's going to be some software geared to their industry. And I want them to do that. I want them to use it. And I was working with a mortgage guy a couple of years ago, and he wasn't using what he could buy for a relatively small amount of money. And I actually coached him into doing that. Changed his life. He was a producer. He wasn't doing bad, but he wasn't meeting up to his potential. And just the simple fact of having him embrace a CRM system geared to his industry was so valuable. And that's where I discovered, stop screwing around by trying to teach somebody what I learned 15 years ago with Google Calendar. That in most industries, there's software that they should be using. Have them research what it is, pick one, and let's see how you can break into it. And so that's what I've done with, but again, we go through all the stuff about time. And I love the concept that time management's not a it's not a time goal, it's a goals clarification goal. Because if you don't know what you want, it doesn't matter how you spend your time. So you work backwards from that, and what are you using and stuff like that. Communication, it's a great chapter. I can't wait to see how the new one works out. But communication is a powerful, powerful chapter. And there's just so much in it to talk about. So much in it when, and I go back to the basic thing of communication. If you don't do what I want you to do, why aren't you doing it? It's simple. You don't see a benefit. So in communication, what's the benefit of having somebody listen to you and do what you want? And I use the goal sheet as a selling tool. And so most people that I'm involved with are involved in selling. So we learn how to use the goal sheet as a selling tool. Motivation, we all know that one. It's smack out in the middle of the kickoff when we talk about the 3 ways to motivate, and we come back to that. And we don't motivate people. We provide the environment for them to motivate themselves, because that's the only way anybody gets motivated. So what I'm doing is these are things that are timeless. And whether we're delivering them with an LMS system or we're delivering them with the book, it doesn't matter. But what matters is we have credibility. And if you're coming in with the book, you no longer have credibility. You will lose clients. You'll lose people's interest. And then decision-making and problem solving, we already talked about. And I just say, what's the difference? And take it from there. Because people won't know the difference. Well, the difference is decision-making is a goal. Problem solving is the rest of the goal sheet. And there's stuff to talk about in there. It's good too. And then I get to the stuff I do in continual leadership growth. Then what I did is I kept separate. What I've done together is I've weaved the two, the action plan, which I talked about. And when I talk about it, I spend a third of each facilitation on the action plan, because the reason I do that is because that's what personalizes it. When somebody says, are you doing something, geared to me, or is this some canned thing? I say, no, it's geared to you. And the action plan is geared to them. And then my facilitation makes the book geared to them. Understanding what I just said about the power of goal categories. And the other note I made to myself, here's where engagement becomes necessary. This is what individualizes the process for each participant. Then I always, if allowed, and I've priced it in, bleed into 3 coaching sessions where I'm using the weekly, what's it called, Wendy, in the coaching academy? The weekly,
We can review.
Yeah, the weekly review. And I use that a lot, whether I've done something with somebody or not. It's just, it's a great tool to get people focused on what we're going to talk about. But so I always build in 3 coaching sessions. And sometimes it will get me more business, with somebody. Sometimes it will get me a referral, but I do that, and I'm always building it in. Now, I started doing it after the coaching academy, but if you're not doing the coaching academy or haven't done it, it's not necessary. I mean, you can do it without doing the coaching academy, when he wants me to say that or not. But doing the coaching academy makes you more equipped to do it, to be a coach, and to understand that. And as I say, I build it in to provide value for the client that's paying me. That's what I have, and it's taken me 49 minutes to go through that. Well, 50. My computer says 350. I'm open now to questions that anybody wants to ask me, or anything else that we're doing. Hello? Crickets? Choop, choop.
There's no questions, Arnie. I'll say two most interesting things to me are you're more effective on Zoom, which
Yes.
maybe we're starting to pick up. And the second thing is there's no territory, because I'm starting to pick up business elsewhere now,
Absolutely. Isn't it
which
wonderful?
is kind of interesting.
Right. Yes. So,
Arnie,
yeah.
Arnie, will you share with the group how you use the assignment section of the LMS?
How I use the what section?
The assignment section of the new.
Yeah, there's a way to do it. Wendy will show you how to do it. I mean, and I keep having to call her to ask her. And Wendy, I do see what my client's doing. I love that. Okay, I can see when there's reading stuff and doing stuff, and when they're answering questions and they're filling stuff out. But I have found it's still not, what's the word I want? Effortless. It's still just easier for me to send somebody an email of the assignment sheet.
I got to train you on a new habit. You'll love the system once you get used to it.
Okay. So what? We've changed it somewhat?
No, you upload your assignments, and then when they complete it and they hit submit that they've completed it, you can see exactly what they've done.
Oh, I ask them. I mean, and you're right. And so that, yes, we have to have more sections on that. Okay. Where I learn it better. So there's a clue to you that may be something you want to facilitate better than I can facilitate it. So you can get Doug Brown to do that and stuff like that. But yes, Wendy has explained it to me many times, and I'm working at it. But with the client I'm currently working with, he was struggling with it. I was struggling to show it to him. So I said, okay, I'll just attach an email. And I've got all the assignment sheets in my computer. And so I just attach it to an email. He says, yeah, he got it. And then we go through it. Bertha, you have something.
I have a question. I think this has been great, Arnie, and it's true that everyone's on the go, and having the mobility of the LMS is really great. Would we be open to maybe eventually having an app where the clients can hear the chapter, since you say to them, okay, let's hear it, 5 to 6 times. Having it on the go that way might be even easier. Is that something that maybe down the future we could look into?
Wendy, that was to you.
I'm not sure as far as app. They can listen to it on the go now. They just download it to their phones.
No, I know they can download it. I was just thinking if there was something that they can click, just an easier access. So
yeah, we can look into what that might look like. Not sure.
Well,
4.0.
I'm with Bertha that if there is an app that takes them through, I mean, everybody today is used to using apps. So if there is an app where somehow, whether they're using a tablet or a phone, they can go on the app, personalize it to them, and know where they are, all the same thing they're doing now, but have it as an app. Now that may be, go ahead.
The issue with the app is if you do an app, then it's public, anybody can download it, and then that's taking business away from you guys. It has to be put on the store, so it's public and it's out for everybody, and there's nothing.
Well, hang on.
Do.
I mean, I understand. This is where you and I can talk about this at a later time, but we can't let something good go by. If there is a better way to do something, we've got to figure out a way. Now, I know that if somebody pays money, there's a lot of apps that I can download stuff, or excuse me, I can go on apps but I can't get into the meat of it if I haven't paid somebody.
Mhm.
I mean, like Netflix or other stuff. And so it's worth a dialogue to see what can we do. That's the only point that I make. And it may have to be that somebody, after they bought something, they have access to the app. Now, again, we don't want them to have access to it, so they're sharing stuff and all the other stuff. But I still go back to that what makes this stuff work is our facilitation, not the material itself. I mean, somebody once said to me, why don't you just sell me these books and I'll do them on my own? I said, be glad to. Just how much it is. And charge them the same thing I was going to charge them if I facilitated. But I come with it for nothing. Okay. I mean, you know, and so that, and I'm not doing you a favor by giving you the material. I mean, and Wendy, I could tell you, if you don't think, you know, how much of this material has been out there from people that have, you know, bought into it or did stuff. And I don't know now because I don't pay attention to it, but it didn't ever cost the company any business because nobody can take this material and get benefit from it. It needs to be facilitated. Now, that's a point of view I have, but, you know, we can talk about it another time. But just, you know, make sure it's something we talk about. Any other comments or questions?
Yeah, Arnie. Oh,
Well, first
sorry,
Tom,
Tom.
and then we'll go. But Tom had his hand up. I saw, and then we'll go to Leslie. I promise. Tom.
So thank you, Arnie. Goal categories. Could you talk more about your approach? Because I think that's fallen through the cracks for me for almost 2 decades.
I'm sorry. I'm missing what you said.
Well, you talked about, you know, the at the completion of the process,
Yes.
they have 25 goal categories.
Yes.
Can you just elaborate on that a bit more?
Well, okay. The thought being, I always say to somebody, if it's a perfect world, you'd pick 2 of them, you'd set goals, and you'd work on the goals, and then you'd accomplish those goals. You'd pick 2 more because you do them in order of importance and so forth. And I say, but you know, in all the years I've been doing this, most people just put this stuff aside and never look at it again. And so I don't fight that. I don't tell them to do it, but that's just the reality. I said, but if you have put down 20 plus goal categories and they're on paper and you've identified to the world that you want to do this, a year from now, you will be amazed at what you've accomplished on those 25. Now, that was what somebody said to me 25 years ago, and they were right. Because I've never, I mean, I can walk you through my life and lots of things and physical, financial, mental, spiritual, whatever. And they were goal categories that as I was doing this stuff, and then and then that's what I spend time doing is creating goal categories for myself. And then I accomplish them. And I want people to know that. I want people to understand that by putting something up in front of you, I don't want to take anything away from the goal process, you know, actually the goal and then the process. But I also want people to see the value of goal categories because that's what they're going to spend their time doing. Does that make sense and answer your question?
Yes, it did. I had been saying the same thing about the dreams, but taking that extra
I say dreams are great. That's where it starts, but they're unfocused.
Yeah, so it adds a focus to it. So
I
thank you.
go the second level down where it's focused. And that's where I think it's more value. Personally, I think it's more value. You were going to say something, Leslie.
Oh, yeah, just thank you, Arnie, because this has been very helpful and I haven't had the opportunity to drop in a while, but I was reflecting on your comments about us being more effective now in this medium, which is such an interesting dynamic. And I know when COVID first hit and I'd have one Zoom meeting after another, I was so exhausted.
Oh, yes, it is
And
exhausting.
It's exhausting. And I had to step back and I said, why am I exhausted? It's just a
Because you're
meeting.
focusing.
Why? Because I have to be like this, right? And if we were in the Reading, Pennsylvania, and I was sitting at the back of the room, I'd be doing 4,000 other things while I was listening
Right,
to you.
right.
And I would think that I was getting as much out of it,
Right,
but I wouldn't be.
right.
And so it's a tremendous mechanism now.
Yes.
And I just love it. So thank you.
And it's great. Any other comments or questions? Because Bertha left for 4 o'clock. I've got a 4 o'clock. I'd be a few minutes late for it, but I got 4. Any other questions from anybody? Fritz, okay. Bob, got it?
Thank you.
Anybody
Thanks,
else?
Arnie.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Wendy's,
Thank
anything
you.
else we need or we're done? We're done?
I appreciate it. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.